So in computer science and in programming and in all sorts of world things, this concept of abstraction comes up a lot. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it actually means with the help of my good friend here, broccoli puree, which is delicious. So if you actually want to make this recipe, I highly recommend it, but you do need a pressure cooker. So this is the recipe for how to make that. So I'll give you just a second for you to have a little look at it. All right, so that seems pretty concrete, right? It's not, as we would say in the regular English, abstract. But if we think about this, it requires a lot of prior knowledge to be able to understand this information. Like, what is a pressure cooker? If you've never used a pressure cooker or seen one, maybe you just don't know. Turn the heat. What is heat? Like, that's a real complicated question when you get into thermodynamics of it. So, what is cut? And if we go through this, all of these doing words are highlighted here. And we can think of doing words as functions, right? So we've got the cut function, we've got the melt function, we've got the add function, we've got the place function, so on and so on and so on. And then we've got these things which we can think of as arguments. So cut, broccoli, comma, half inch. And so I've written a pseudocode function here. Now pseudocode means that it's not necessarily real code, it just looks a bit like code. So we've still got a doc string, we've still got some arguments. This function, this format here of word equals value, that's a Python thing for a default value. They're super useful, so you might see them coming up over and over again. And then we have another type of loop here, a while loop. And so what that's doing is saying, while this statement here resolves to true, keep doing this stuff. And so we have a collection of an empty list, and we use this collections of empty lists thing all the time too. So while this is true, so we still have a thing, we still have some broccoli because we've just been given it. We position the knife size from the end of the thing. So if that's the thing, we're going to put the knife 0.5 centimeter down, and then we're going to push the knife down. And then we take the piece which has come off, and we put it onto the pile. So this isn't Python code. It's not going to work because it's like basically crazy. But it sort of says, how do you cut something, right? You need to put the knife some distance from the end of the thing you're cutting, push the knife down, pick up the thing and put it in the pile. And then when you're finished, while we don't have anything, if still have returns true, we give the pile to someone. So we have finished cutting the broccoli into 1/2 inch pieces. So these things here still have push, from end. Those are other functions and they need to be defined somewhere else, right? So they're abstracted away from us. So each one of these concepts has been previously learned through your life. You now understand what it means to cut broccoli. You even understand what it means to be broccoli, right? So you've cut this thing, you've melted this thing. These things are cooking concepts that you've learned somewhere else. They've been abstracted away in this recipe because it's assumed that you understand what you're dealing with. And this is this kind of multi-layer thing. So every concept has other concepts inside it. And so as you keep going down, or like turtles all the way down, as some people say, eventually you'll get to a super basic concept like seeing something or breathing. And so these functions that we're dealing with here have been defined somewhere else. And sometimes you get these unitaskers. So you've got a function that does just one thing. So this has a function that makes donuts. And this has a function that makes these kind of gross looking churros. This one does corn dogs. This one does cake pops. I don't know what the others do. But you can have a general function that does them all, which is this one. And so if you have a function that says do magic, you kind of don't know what it's going to do. So you've got to have this balance between a function that does one thing very specifically or is able to do several things. And you can eventually, over time, you get a grip on how you do that breakup.